in public platforms in the media, pretty much preoccupied with justifying police brutality on numerous occasions, Minister. I am yet to hear you condemning police brutality or incidents that may be translated as police brutality. Can you today, in this meeting, condemn police brutality? Thank you.
Over to you, Honorable Minister.
Well, I like the operational word that brutality or activities that can be interpreted as brutality. Country that has constitution. Look, nobody supports brutality and police getting out of their way. Maybe I don't know, numerous on the side of the member what is saying has listened numerous times what numerous is. I've simply said all events of the police read the code of conduct. That's one. Two, police are forever reminded. Police are forever reminded that they are policing under the constitutional dispensation, but also the human rights. But police are also reminded that the law allows them to defend themselves. The law allows police to defend because they're under attack. I've said since the lockdown, we have lost 8 members of the law enforcement, the police, who have been shot and killed. And the law is very much aware of that. That's why the law, especially under the Criminal Procedure Act, would allow police to use the proportional force if it needs to be to defend, that's what the law says, to defend the innocent South Africans, but also to defend themselves. It's not me saying so, it's the law. Even it goes to Section 49 to say, if police are under threat, if police are under danger, they are allowed to use the deadly force. That's not me saying so. And we're not going to say police should not defend themselves. Police should not defend the South Africans that are under attack. But at the same time, police are reminded that they are under the human rights policing system. It is on that score that if they get out of that innocent, they push to the brinks innocent South Africans, they get punished, they're taken to court. Some of them are in court because of that. So what we have said is all in the law of the Republic of South Africa, including police defending themselves.
Your time for response is expired. Can we then give Honorable Boshoff?
Thank you very much, Chair. Good afternoon, Minister. Minister, you said that answered to previous questions that I hope you're enjoying that meal, Honourable Lucas. Let me carry on. Journalist Karim was first shot in Yeovil with rubber bullets before being asked to produce a permit. Siasanga Gijana lost her eye after she was hit in the face by a police officer whilst fetching water in her own yard. I know these cases have been reported to IPIT, Minister, but do they fall within your definition of police brutality or not? Thank you, Chair.
Over to you, Minister.
Chairperson, the question of somebody fetching the water, there was a protest around there, and the rubber bullet was not aimed in the individual that we're talking about, and as such, then that would have been accidental that happened. So the brutality for me will be when deliberately and systematically the police are using excessive force to restrain or deal with those people. This one for me was accidental. But the one that he is talking about at I think is Yeoville, that would be because police, I'm told, is under investigation. They started by shooting and then they asked questions first. It should not be so. So I'll take that one. But the investigation will tell us exactly where we are with those cases. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Honorable Ngqita. Honorable Ngqita.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chair. Chair, let me thank first the Minister for the swift response in terms of cases that got to be reported to them regarding the police brutality. Chair, what I would like to know from the Minister is a question. Is there a program with one or two sister departments in terms of helping those that get affected through police brutality? I would like to know. Thanks.
Over to you, Minister.
Chairperson, we work very closely with the Department of Social Development, but also ourselves as the police. We do have those services. We do have social workers. We do have people that work with, I think, who with the psychology services. So if it needs be, we do avail those resources to the people out there, both the members of the community and the South African Police Service members. As I've explained, that themselves, sometimes they put under a very tremendous stress that they need to be assisted. Yes, we do have those services and we avail them.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. The next question will be question number 1 of Honorable Matibula. I just want to remind members that there is only 4 follow-up questions. So when we reach the 4th person, we are going to the next question.
The answer is no. There is no case registered at Sekhukhune police station, and no arrests have been made for people harvesting Lengana herbal medicine in Sekhukhune land. There was a concern raised by the NCOP in the community at the Jamila Tribal Authority harvesting Lengana herbal medicine However, people were reminded to stay at their places of the residence during COVID-19 lockdown, except when they are in possession of permits for reasons stated in the regulation of the Disaster Management Act of 2002, Act 57 of 2002. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Honorable Matibula, is there a follow-up?
Thank you very much, Deputy Chair. I'm covered by the question. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Bibi, you still want to ask your question? Honorable Bibi.
Okay. Thanks, Honorable Chair. Umbuzo wami ukuthi ngifisa kulolu daba.
Mama, Honorable Minister.
Chairperson, umnyango wenza ngayo yonke imizamo ukuthi okokuqala ube umnyango ovulekile. Try by all means to be transparent and to put things the situation if the situation is misrepresented. So indeed, we agree that on both there will be situation where further explanation so that we cut off on what we think and what we term a propaganda as the department.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I think we can continue to question number 35.
The enlistment of new recruits in the South African Police Service is governed by Regulation 11 of the South African Police Service, SAPS, Employment Regulation, which prescribes, among others, that the applicant must have no previous criminal conviction and such person shall allow his or her fingerprints to be taken and allow background inquiries to be made. The recruitment and selection strategy further outlines the following background screening processes which are currently being conducted. These processes would be fingerprinting screening by the local criminal record, global access control systems, crime intelligence security screening, verification of qualification, reference, and reference checking. So those are the steps followed to make sure that people recruited very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Any follow-up, Babam Fayel?
Thanks very much, Deputy
Babam
Chair.
Fayel, are you asking on his behalf?
I'm standing for Honorable Mfaela, who reported to me his frustration of disconnection where he is located.
Continue, Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chair. It was in the interest of the House to respond, to get the response of the Minister on this important question by Honorable Mfaela. Minister, thanks for shedding light on that. Whether has an assessment of the impact of the new basic training learning program to assist in our national commitment to build a professional and disciplined police service been made. Thank you, Chair and the Minister.
Thank you, Minister. You may respond.
Yes, Chairperson, there is an ongoing assessment on this thing, curriculum, the behavior, the level of psychometric tests that we do, and the recruitment systems themselves. Not but only that, also in the improvement of the academic qualification of the members of the South African Police. Chairperson, you know that the decision was taken around 2010 to say you will only join a member of the South African Police Service if you are matriculated, but we have also gone out of the way as this organization to give more and more bursaries, and there are high qualifications in this organization. Then, if you can simply say, remember that the head of the Hawks is a doctor of laws, so is an advocate. So there are many of them that are really have improved. Just to increase the professionalism,
the next
but
question
also
will be question number 1 of Honorable
to the
Matula.
previous situation. Yes, we are working very hard to make the South African Police a professional and an organization of excellence.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Honorable Ryder.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chairperson. Deputy Chairperson, before I ask my follow-up question, I just want to ask you if you can settle a bet for us. We're trying to work out if what you're eating is very hot or very cold. We're trying to work out why you're waving your hand.
I burnt. I made a fire and I burnt. That's what I am doing this.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Mr. Minister, thanks for your responses. I just want to highlight, I don't believe that the problem is the take-in or the intake of dodgy characters or new recruits that are misguided. It rather seems to be the fact that it's become almost impossible to get rid of the crooks and the criminals once they are inside the South African Police Service. So IPID appears to be overworked and they're certainly underfunded.
Hello?
Can you maybe give us some indication? Are new recruits sensitized? Guidance from you?
I'm sure Honorable Ryder is finished asking his question. Honorable Minister.
Yes, it's finished, but it broke somewhere. I didn't really comprehend the question very well, Chairperson.
Honorable Rider, you can, there is a minute or so that you can just summarize your question. It seems as if we've lost him. Let's go to Honorable Sheikh. We will come back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Chairperson, and thank you, Minister, for your response and your indication that there are regulations and a strategy for recruitment which outlines the risks, checks and balances. But Minister, my question is there a policy to continuously screen and review the criminal status of the members of the South African Police Services? If not, why not? And if so, what are the relevant details? Thank you.
Yes, there is continuous screening. Within the South African Police, we have the ACC, the Anti-Corruption Committee, that is within the South African Police. That is besides the inspectorate that we go out there. Maybe I can share with the members of the trying to improve in this ACC Anti-Corruption Committee is made of the South African Police, but we have recently agreed that we need the high place members of the society to come and join us and join that committee. People like Bishop Mahoba have been approached, and people like Reverend Mkajwa have been able to agree so that they join this anti-corruption committee, which is able not just to be ourselves against or checking on our members, but have this element of the highly respected people joining us. So we keep on improving on that to say, let's find the way of finding the crooks and flush them out of the organization. Thanks.
Honorable Ryder. If he's not there, can then we take Honorable Shackleton. Shackleton, you may.
On question 14, Chairperson.
So you are not on this question.
No, I'm just on a follow-up question. Sorry?
No, I'm asking, are you still on the question of number 2?
It was a follow-up for Honorable
question 14, Honorable Minister.
The number of contravening lockdown regulations since the declaration of up until 19th June 2020 is reflected per province in the table below. So Eastern Cape, total persons charged since the declaration of the national state of disaster was 27,081. Total persons who paid admission of guilty, 1,300 and appear before court or pay admission of guilt is 21,000. Chairperson, this is a category that you'll be calling numbers, figures, under which. So the next one will be Free State. The category 1 will be 38,907.
If it's going to exceed the 5 minutes, can we request that it be submitted to the NCOP, please?
No, I can stop the figures and then go on the narrative below that. At the onset of, maybe let me give the total of these numbers. People that have been arrested ever since, there are 270. Total persons who paid admission to guilty is 22,815, and outstanding to court and the further fines is 199,677. At the onset of the lockdown level 5, compliance level improved as the regulations were enforced. However, contraventions of the regulation was still high. Increased law enforcement visibility and action towards assess the authority of the state. The last answer on this one, that compliance with regulation deteriorated during level 3 and non-compliance with regulation that are not criminalized, such as the wearing of masks and social distancing increase. The reinstating of the sale of liquor, even though criminalized from Friday to Sunday, has been found to contribute to the non-compliance due to the behavioral changes when there has been a marked increase in level of crime during lockdown level 3 in comparison with the level 4 and 5. Thanks, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Sheikh, follow up.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for that response. And indeed, we look forward to the provincial breakdown you wanted to give us, but you provide us with the document. Minister, my question is, what lessons can the country learn from the national lockdown in relation to improved policing and the fight against crime?
Over to you, Honorable Minister.
Chairperson, there are quite several lessons that. One lesson that we can't undermine is the visibility of the law enforcement agencies out there. As is at the present moment, as the South African police were already planning what will be policing after lockdown, which will never be seen. Few police should be on the police station and more police should be out there on the street. That is the first one. The second lesson that was learned, Honorable Chair, is the relationship between the law enforcement agencies, South African police in this time, and the communities. You will be surprised, Honorable Chair, how much information that was supplied by the ordinary members of the community, of the people that were breaking these regulations. We did not really need to go out sometimes, check on them, but the information was just coming, including today, including now, that information. So we want to keep that kind of relationship. But thirdly, is that the police themselves, though there are issues of claiming brutality and all that, they were put on the test to learn how to treat and work with the communities en masse and in a big scale. I think those are few lessons that we learned. Those are few lessons that we'll take forward to make sure that policing improves.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Shackleton.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Through you to the Honourable Minister of Police. Many South Africans were fined or arrested for contravening sections of the regulations for which there was no penalty declared in the regulations, which amounts to wrongful arrest or prosecution. There was even an SMS going around with advice to a general that these individuals should be arrested or fined. I would have loved to ask a question on how many people were arrested or charges withdrawn, but I know you won't have the statistics at the tip of your fingers. So I would rather ask who will be taking responsibility for wrongful arrests due to poor communication within the SAPS. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Shackleton. Honorable Minister.
Well, Chairperson, the wrongful arrest can be only determined and decided by the court. It cannot just be me, cannot be the member. The honorable member must be reminded that we have been taken to court too many on these things, and the court has found that there was no wrongful doing. On some, one famous one was the question of the receipt on the cigarette issue. We were taken to court on that one, and when we were ready to court, the people that took us to court withdrew. So I would simply say, if the determination of if it was a wrongful arrest, we'll wait the court to tell to say that, and then we'll take
Thank
it.
you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Outcome.
We are well aware of the fact that the sale of cigarettes and other tobacco products have been banned during this lockdown. How many people have been arrested for either selling or buying cigarettes during this lockdown? And more importantly, will these arrests lead to these people having criminal records to their names just because they bought cigarettes in order to satisfy the dependence of nicotine? If so, do you honestly think, Honorable Minister, that it is fair for a citizen to receive a criminal record which will have a long-lasting negative effect on his life and which might even prevent such a person from obtaining a job and just earning a living just because he bought?
Honorable Minister.
Well, I thought the honorable member would remind us that the court of law has confirmed that you can't buy cigarette. It is illegal. It's not just the regulations, not just Minister of Court, not just the Minister of Police, but it's a full bench of the senior court in the Republic of South Africa. So if then people do that, if then the court confirms that it is wrong to have cigarette and you go, that is to commit crime. So it must be a kind of a criminal record. You did it knowing very well that you are not supposed to do it. But besides that, I agree with the honorable member that some of these ordinary South Africans would have to look to it that they can't be so honorable member that the Department of Justice, the Minister of Justice, has come to the police and we see how we can look to those cases that were really petty so that they don't give South Africans criminal record. But there were those that were really serious criminals. We found a lot of them transporting cigarette that was illegal, underground cigarette, and those were working for organized cartels. Those will have to stay with their criminal record. But on the other one, petty ones, definitely the Minister of Justice is looking at that. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, I am happy that the Minister is highlighting the good working relations that they have enjoyed as security agencies with our agencies. But what I would like to know from the Minister, do they have a program in place to sustain such good working relationship with the communities? Because that can produce a very good result. Thank you very much, Minister.
Chairperson, you will remember that, by the way, it's a law in the Republic of South Africa that South African Police Service as an organization must work with the communities through the Community Policing Forum. But as we say, we need to go extra mile to make sure that we do work with the members of the community. As I've said, this new relationship that was created out of COVID-19, work with the communities, will be sustained. But also, the working on the formal way with the Community Policing Forum will be improved. As you will know, that at the present moment, the Community Policing Forum will be removed under the clause of the management of the police and given to the hands of the MECs so that they can work together to be able to work and oversee the activities of the police. But also, we must be reminded that we have a secretariat that their job is to oversee the police, but also to improve relationships between the police and the communities out there. So we're activating all elements that will be utilized to improve those relationships. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. We will go to the next question, and that is question number 41, asked by the Honorable Smith.
An extension of 21 days is requested on this question, Chair. An extension of 21 days is requested for the submission of this reply, as the information needs to be drawn from a live system and verified against other systems and manual database. The information that is requested comes from the year 2000. So it's quite an elaborate job to find the information since 2000 coming up here. So we are requesting to be given more time so that we are able to start from 2000 coming up. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Smith, your follow-up.
Thank you, Chair. We will be awaiting the Minister's written response on that then. Honourable Minister, we have it in good authority that there might be a direct link between individuals registering their firearms with the SAPS and farm murders taking place. Has this link ever been investigated? And if not, would you give a commitment here today to embark on such an investigation if it would contribute towards reducing the number of farm murders? Thank you.
Honorable Minister, over to you.
Chairperson, the reduction of murder at any part of South Africa is the primary work of the South African police, as we are instructed by the Constitution at 206, combat, to prevent, investigate, and enforce the law. We will do that with all sections of the South African society. But indeed, there are other extra other extra things we take to work with the sectors in South Africa. We are working with the farmers. We are working with the farmers through the farm safety plan, as we have launched it in Limpopo, and we're trying to expand that. And working together on that, will be also investigating and examining all other elements, including what the honorable member has raised, if that is a causation of the injuring and killing of the farmers or any other section of South African society. Indeed, we'll investigate that, but we work well with the farmers at the present moment. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Skarni.
Deputy Chair, Honorable Minister, is there any data available with regards to weapons handed in during amnesty that get stolen and are used in crimes, and particularly farm murders? And if not, will this be investigated?
Honorable Minister, over to you.
Chairperson, all firearms that are handed back to the South African police, they go for IBIS, which means they are checked if they've been used, in what kind of crime they've been used, in whatever format they've been used. Yes, there are firearms already, minus or plus 10, that have been found that they've been used in committing crime. So that continues. It's obvious. That's why people that are surrendering their firearms, we don't have drop boxes where they come and drop. We want your name, we want your information, so that it's checked, and then we are able to follow you if it needs to be. There are people that we are following up because we have found that their firearms have been illegally used.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Dutoy.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Minister, the subject is stolen firearms. I want to know if you could say how many firearms used in criminal activities originally belonged to the South African Police Service or were initially handed in through the fire and amnesty process. Thank you, Chair.
Although the question is in line with what they've been asked, it seems to be quite something of a new question since it involves states. But if the minister is prepared, he can respond.
Chairperson, for now, the firearm amnesty, we have requested the extension on it, so it's still on the roll. We haven't categorized firearms that this comes from there, this comes from there. At the end, we'll give that statistics. At the present moment, we just count firearms as they are. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable delegates, the following written questions transferred to oral in terms of Rule 249 of the Council rules, and we will now request the Minister to respond to question number 1 asked by the Honorable Visser. Minister, over to you.
The question, Mr. Professor, yes.
Yes.
In terms of government processes, budget submissions and requests pertaining budget allocation need to be submitted through the official medium-term expenditure framework, which is MTEF process that is annually facilitated by the National Treasury. The request for the additional funding for the Directorate for Priority Crime Investigating, DPCI, which is known as OPS, as referred to, form part of the MTEF submission from South African Police Service during the 2019 MTEF budget process, for which Treasurer in July 2018. The matter was discussed at the technical group and functional group meeting held in National Treasury, after which other relevant governing structures considered. MTEF allocation to departments. SEPS did not receive any additional funding pertaining the request for the 2019-2020 financial year. The allocation letter from National Treasurer at the time did not communicate unsuccessful request. However, during the 2020 MTEF budget processes, some funding had been prioritized towards the DPCIS to strengthen the capacity to deal with the backlog. This funding is anticipated to become available from 2020-2021 financial year. SEPS has proved that the request from the DPCI was submitted to National Treasurer during the indicated MTEF process as prescribed. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Visser, is there a follow-up from your side? Honorable Visser.
Chairperson, Deputy Chair, there is no follow-up from Honorable Visser's side.
Thank you very much. And I don't see any indication of any other, so let's go to question 2 asked by the Honorable Baha. Honorable Minister, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. The General J.K. Pahlane offense is corruption and money laundering allegation. It is alleged that in 2011 and 2012, General Pahlane, through his corrupt relationship with the service provider, Criminalistic and Criminal Tech, financed his house at a Sable. IP investigation was able to uncover a further corrupt relationship with another service provider, FTA, owned by Mr. Kev Kitchen. The investigation has detected possible crimes of corruption, fraud, and money laundering facilitated by the car dealer, Mr. Duran Seman, as per Sinoville, case number 146/05/27. Chairperson, it might be a very long read, this one. What I would do, if I can request from the permission from you, is to give the names of those generals that have been charged and where are we. The first one is Pahlane, the second one is General Shezi. The offense is corruption, and the case is in court as we speak. The third one is General Nemutazela. The allegation is corruption. The status of the case, the docket is referred to the NPA on the 1st of July for further investigation. The fourth one is General Makele. The allegation is defeating the end of justice. and the matter has been referred to the NPA. The fifth one is General Mabula. The allegation of the offense is murder, torture, defeating the end of justice. The status of the case is that it has been referred to the NPA. The sixth one is general, and the status of the case is the case docket was referred to NPA investigating on July for further investigation. The seventh one is General Mpembe in Northwest, who happens to be his matter is in court. The eighth one is General Mokwena, who has left the organization, but by the time he left, the matter was referred to the NPA, but he's arrested as we speak now with the other eight senior officers. The ninth one is General Nobo. The status of the case is that the IPIT is still dealing with the matter. And the docket was referred to NPA 1st July for the investigation, and the 10th one is General Mosuyane for defeating the end of justice. The case docket was referred to NPA for the further investigation on July, and we're waiting for that. So those are the 10 generals, the offenses, and the status of the cases.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Baha, do you have a follow-up?
Deputy Chair, Honorable Baha does not take follow-up. Thank you.
Honorable Moimang, you want to ask something? Honorable Moimang.
Thank you, Chair. Chairperson, the confidence of the public in the top echelons of the crime-fighting institution is very important. And when such issues around investigations is raised around the generals, many people are beginning to ask, where are these generals located? Is it a general problem across all the 9 provinces, or is it only located at the head office? So if the general can just elaborate in terms of what is the nature of these offenses and where are they located? This is the general problem. Thank you, General. Thank you, Minister.
Sorry, someone muted me. Over to you, Minister.
Thanks, thanks, Chairperson. I thought you were alone there. So the most of these generals, I guess 10 or 9 of them would be located in the national office, in the headquarters of the police. And the most of these offenses are more on the supply chain issues, where they either get corrupted with the service providers themselves. As about a month ago, we arrested 8 of our members, senior brigadiers and 1 general. And they were not just arrested alone. They were arrested with the directors of the companies that are service providers and all that. So most of them are not from provinces, except a General Mpembe, who is not arrested for corruption, but was arrested for Marikana situation. So it's unfortunate that I would concede with ease to say it looks like this corruption is more in the nest of headquarters rather than in provinces. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. We will continue, and we will then request that you respond to the question number 3 from the Honorable Rider.
On the 24th February 2020, the deoxynibonucleic acid, which is DNA backlog per province, was as follows. Category and turnaround time. So Gauteng, there was 2,191. That will be routine, the routine DNA. Intelligence would be 15,000, and non-routine will be 0. Unassigned, there will be 3,474. For the total would be 20,690. Chairperson, I will try to just read the totals so that we save time. That Gauteng will be 20,690, KZN will be 0, Eastern Cape will be 482, Western Cape will be 13,499, and the total would be 34,621. The actual backlog at February 21, 2020 was 34,621 case entries. Please note that the backlog is within the stipulated minimum of 10% of deregistered exhibits, not exceeding the specified timeframes for each category of the exhibit, as per the South African Police Service Annual Performance Plan, APP 2019-2020. The actual number of DNA cases on hand is 45,519. The actual reference index of hand is 26,000 samples. The targets for the turnaround times are as follows. 75% of routine cases must be finalized within 35 days, calendar days. Non-routine cases, 70% of non-routine cases must be finalized within 113 days. Cases, 80% DNA intelligence case must be finalized within 90 calendar days. The interventions to reduce the backlog are as follows. The intervention is bid specification have been submitted to supply management SCM for a bidding process to be initiated. Bid specification have been submitted for a bidding process to be initiated. A maintenance contract was put in place to promptly address breakdowns, upgrade of the old air conditioning system to a new technology. Thanks, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Honorable Ryder, I take it there is no follow-up, or should I not just take it like that? If none, let's continue and allow the Minister to respond to question number 6 from the Honorable Sileko.
Question number 6 on this one. The funding for internal audit functions has always been prioritized within the allocated budget in an effort for strengthening the internal controls of the department. The prioritized areas are mainly in travel and accommodation for 9 provincial audits, as well as training and development of current staff members. The IPID internal audit sub-program consists of 8 members, including the head of the unit. In addition, 3 new members with expertise in critical areas such as information system and financial auditing are still required in order to address the identified skill shortage. The department is considering various available options to address the identified skills gap. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Sileko.
Thank you very much.
Nothing. Okay. Yes, over to you.
Thank you very much, Janelle, for that reply. But can the Minister please give us time frames as to when they can give us the outcome of this process that the department will engage in making sure that that department is fully capacitated and is funded in making sure that they fulfill their responsibility. Thank you very much.
Honorable Minister.
Yes, Chairperson, within all our powers, especially around the finances, as the first question or in terms of the funding of the IPID, as one of the serious shortcomings, one of the serious challenges. We will be working on that, and we will prioritize the personnel as we get some finances to assist that IPID is fully capacitated. It is important that the IPID must be capacitated, and we'll work hard towards that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Mita.
Thank you very much, Chair. I am hearing the Minister saying they are in a process of starting to recruit the skills that are necessary for the section. What I would like to know, have they already advertised for the post, or else they are in a process of also headhunting those that they are having those skills that are necessary for the unit in the department? Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Over to you, Honorable Minister.
Chairperson, it would be very fair for the IPID that we work hard, firstly, to get the permanent head of the IPID, because that is a person that will be better placed to understand the shortage and what skills do they want there. And indeed, we believe that will happen in the shortest possible time now. And after that, those prioritized positions, those prioritized skills that are regarded as shortage in this organization will be fulfilled. So we believe that the people that are placed better to lead that organization rather than pushing from outside with a less understanding of organization, which might not give us the better outcome. So we will push those that will be given the responsibility to make sure that the organization can do it. Yes, at the present moment, there are positions that are advertised, but I think the critical ones, they will have to be pushed at the higher level of the IPD.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Minister, we will immediately go to question number 7 asked by the Honorable Mikalakis. You can respond on that one.
Independent Police Investigative Directorate has, during the period from the 26th March to 31st, 2020, received and registered 23 cases relating to corruption in terms of Section 28(1)G of the IPID Act. There were arrests made in 3 of the Gauteng cases reported in Akasha, Soshanguve, and Tembisa areas. The investigations on the other cases in the progress at various stages. With regard to the other reported cases, the witnesses' statements were obtained. However, other aspects of investigation still need to be done, such as the identity parade, obtaining the warning statement, and technical reports, and that has been a challenge during the period of lockdown. On the 23rd, on the 23 cases reported, majority were in Gauteng with 14, followed by KwaZulu-Natal 5, Free State, Limpopo, Mpumalanga, and Northern Cape recorded 1 each. Although majority of the cases occurred in the Gauteng province, the cases were scattered in various police prisons. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Mikalakis, do you have any follow-up?
Yes, thank you very much, Deputy Chairperson. Deputy Minister, this question was asked after a few incidents were brought under my attention, and I encouraged the people who complained about it to lodge complaints at IPID. I just want your take on this. My province, where I come from, the Free State, and I also heard of cases in the Eastern Cape, where specifically at the roadblocks, not on the main roads, but the quieter roads, that these cases happened. Did you, as the minister, pick up on a tendency of such bribes being solicited by police members during the lockdown? And apart from the IPID investigations, what was done about this? Thank you very much, Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Mikalakis. Honorable Minister.
Chairperson, the member is correct. The IPID is mandated to investigate South African Police Service members, Metro, but around the municipalities, including Western Cape, they've got the lot of people called enforcement that fall under this ambit of the IPID. There was one incident that was highly publicized. I think it was at KwaDuguza Stenga, where the law enforcement, they chased a young boy to the gate because he was on the beach. So those kind of law enforcement don't fall under the ambit of the IPID. So it might be happen that these activities are done by people that are not South African police, that are not Metro Police. But having said so, we are working hard on the IPID Act to say all enforcement agencies that are armed must fall under IPID so that we have an access as an IPID to all of them. So it could happen that they're not South African Police Service, as it happened at Stenga, as happened in Cape Town, and they're not Metro per se, and then we will have to work with those municipalities to give us those outcomes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Njadu.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Good afternoon, Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister, the Ethics Institute of South Africa, in South Africa, are as a result of people paying to get out of the consequence of traffic offenses, and that these cases have increased every year. What measures are in place to work with the traffic department and municipalities address the issue of bribery relating to traffic offenses? Thank you very much, Honorable Minister.
Honorable Minister, possibly because you responded that way, that there is a question that is coming from municipalities.
Again, let me repeat, the South African Police Service members and Metro members are the only formations that fall under IPID. The Provincial Traffic Inspectorate, including the National Traffic Inspectorate, they don't fall under IPID. Is exactly what we are trying to correct, to say all of them must fall under IPID. For now, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to pursue any form of offense that has been caused by Road Inspectorate of Provinces, National one, and those that are called enforcement, like small municipalities who have their own small enforcement around, like Cape Town, that is got a smaller metro, but a very big enforcement that does not fall under this IP. So the work of amending the IPID Act will put that, and it will help us to work on that. Now we depend on the gentleman, if there is such thing agreement of working between the police and those formations. The IPID is easily told that, look, this is not your jurisdiction. That's what the law need to fix.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. We will immediately go over to question number 8, also from the Honorable Mikalakis. You can continue.
A total of 154 cases were referred to the Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation, that is HOPS, from 26 March 2020 to 27 May 2020. A total of 229 cases were referred to DPC for the same period in 2018. A total of 228 cases were referred to DPC for the same period in 2019. The breakdown of the budgets for the cyber crime and commercial crime units in the DPCI are as follows. Financial year 2018-2019, cyber crime is 500,000. Commercial crime is 634,745. 2019-2020 cybercrime is 1.8 million. Commercial crime is 522,099. 2020-21 cybercrime is 1.6 million, and commercial crime is 917,106. The DPCI is currently busy with the recruitment processes to capacitate all the units, including cybercrime and serious commercial crime investigation units, which deal with cybercrime and related criminal activities. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Michaelakis.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chairperson. Deputy Chairperson, let me start with a comment, and that is, Minister, the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions were written questions transferred that weren't responded to within the time frame. Now, usually you are fairly good with this. I would like to, struggling with the Minister of COCTA, please don't let me struggle with police as well.
Please don't take your chance. That's out of order, House Chair. Deputy Chair, that's very out of order. The questions before the House are Minister of Police, not COCTA.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. We know where the Chief Whip's loyalties lie. So, Minister, please just take that on board.
Just use time at the end, please. You only have half a minute left for your
question. That's all right. Thank you very much, Deputy Chair. Minister, so please respond to questions in the future. Minister, this unit indicated that it needs 20 million rand to capacitate it. The figures that you mentioned don't reach over 1.6 million rand. This unit is tasked with investigating crimes that are committed electronically in terms of fraud and stealing the money of small businesses that need the money, especially now during the COVID period. Where are you going to find the funds, firstly, to properly capacitate this unit in the future? And secondly, do you not think it's a bit hypocritical for you to sit here after you have asked them to prioritize investigations of your own Twitter accounts if small businesses corruption or corruption against small businesses aren't prioritized instead of your own business? Thank you very much.
I don't know what the question is, but Minister, I hope you've heard.
Well, if you gave me more time, Deputy.
The Chairperson, I can't extrapolate the question out of this lecture. To me, it's just one long lecture. Really, I don't know if I understand the question, except to say all of us, including this minister, would like to get proper finances from Treasurer to fund all our programs, including this one. Beyond that, I don't know where to get money if I can't get it from Treasurer, and I can't rob the bank. I can't go for a cash heist to fund these programs. So we'll keep on, like the question was asked of the MTEF, we'll keep on knocking in the door of the Treasurer with a full understanding that at the present moment, fiscus is really strained. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable
But Chair, I heard the other lecture and
Honorable Minister, thank you very much. The last question is the question number 9 asked by the Honorable Boshoff. Honorable Minister, question number 9.
Question number 9.
Honorable Boshoff.
Chairperson, I don't know what I did with my question number 9.
Just check what is the question. I will assist you now. Just my question paper. The question of Honorable Boshoff is how many suicide deaths have occurred in the country since the commencement of the national lockdown? Question number 9.
No, thanks very much, Honorable Chairperson. The question, what one didn't know is whether this is a general population of the suicide. That figure nationally we don't have, but we do have the figure of the South African police. Unfortunately, people that have committed suicide in the South African police, most of them don't die alone. It will be the male police, and up to this point, we have 5. They usually would shoot their partners, as they did at Mpangeni, as they did at Mpumalanga, that they shoot partners, they shoot the in-laws, and shoot themselves. So we're looking around in the country at the present moment on the South African police, that would be 5. But on the general population, definitely that not all of them come to the police, and others will check that information with the Department of Health and other departments. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Let me just, for the record, ask the Honorable Boss of whether she's got a follow-up question.
No, thank you, Chair.
No question. No question.
No question.
Thank you very much, Honorable Bosov. Let us just now express our appreciation to the Honorable Minister. Minister, thank you very much. You responded very well, very elaborate. And I think in future, let the people respond to the written questions. Otherwise, they will make you take so much time here. But thank you very much. We appreciate. And members, we are going to give you just a 5 minutes body break, and then we will come back for the next minister. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. You're welcome.
Thank you, my brother.
Thank you, Chair.
I'm sitting here with 3 gadgets.
Let the minister also get the question orders correct, ma'am.
It's why? I'm sure he does have it like that.
I'm just trying to be cautious, Deputy
Yes.
Chairperson, so that
Okay, Mashna.
yeah.
With you, it's number 10,
Hey.
number 38,
Hey.
number 24.
Yes.
Number 3,
Yes.
and then number 25,
Yes.
89.
and then number 39.
Yes.
Yeah, I've got them in that order. Maybe I've got them. I've got them. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I think if all the members are settled, thank you very much. We are going to continue, and we will now over to the Honorable Minister, Dr. Arun Mutsaledi, to respond to question number 10 as asked by the Honorable Sheikh. Honorable members, for the rest of you, can you please mute your microphones? We don't want audio from any other member besides the member that is speaking and the chairperson. Honorable Minister, over to you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, honorable members. The allegations of corruption by a particular union was referred by me to the Public Service Commission receiving it. I did not only receive this allegation from the union, but I also received it from an individual member of the same union, the member who was making the allegations. The Public Service Commission did the investigation, and the findings were finalized and even submitted. I submitted a copy to the Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs. The findings was that there was no evidence of corruption committed by the acting CEO of the government printing works. But Chairperson, I must also mention that there was another complaint apart from this one from a member of the union and the union itself. A few weeks after that, the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee received a letter which was supposed to be directed to me, but he received it even before I received it, where a unknown whistleblower, which up to today were unable to identify, made very, very serious allegations against the acting CEO and against myself. He was accusing me of intending to appoint the CEO even when I know she's corrupt, and when a corruption allegation has been sent to me and I did nothing about it. When they said so, I had already sent it to the Public Service Commission, but the complaint was that I did nothing about it. The other complaint which he forwarded was that the CEO doesn't have qualifications to do the work as a CEO of the government printing works. The other was that she doesn't have experience. The other was that she undertook a trip to, she convinced me rather, to approve a trip to France in which she traveled business class at the government expense with friends of hers. That trip was to Paris, and she said she went with friends. And the other allegation was that the morale at the public printing works is down and the NDT is no longer performing. And then the last two, which were even more serious, was that the writer said he has got information. He doesn't say there's an allegation. He has got information that I am being lobbied strongly to appoint this acting CEO. I'm lobbied by members of ANC. I'm lobbied by MECs from Gauteng. I'm lobbied by DGs in government. And I'm lobbied by my best friend, who is the acting DG of COPTA. This last one puzzled me because I was not aware
that I've got a best friend in Kokta. So I was very curious to find out who is this best friend of mine. And I found that it's actually the husband of this lady who's the acting CEO. I was completely surprised why he's now my friend. Up to today, I can't point him because I've never met him. I never.
Honorable Minister, you must remember you don't have a lot of time, so let us come to the facts.
Yes, yeah, yes, I'm actually about to finish. Then the last allegation was that I do have business links with this acting CEO. That's why I want to appoint her. So as I said, the first allegation about corruption, the Public Service Commission dismissed it. The second one, the portfolio committee itself went to the government printing works. They called all the unions which operate there. It's NEHAW and PSA. They asked them to make their presentation, and they asked the acting CEO and the staff to make presentation. They also asked me to make presentation. And this is the conclusion they arrived at. Firstly, on the issue of qualification, the acting CEO has got a master's degree and 3 postgraduate qualifications. On the issue of experience, in terms of the Department of Public Service Administration, you need 8 to 10 years experience in the public service, 5 of which must be in senior management. She has done 26 years in the public service and 16 years in senior management. On the trip to France, we were able to provide tickets of the trip because I approved that trip for specific people's names and the amount of money they are going to spend, and plane tickets were forwarded. On the issue of morale, the portfolio committee found that actually the entity increased its revenue by 6%. It improved its revenue collection or its performance by 6%, unlike many other government entities. Obviously, on the issue of me being lobbied by ANC, DGs, and all that, and the issue of business, we have referred this to the Hawks, that they must investigate and bring all these things to an end. That's what happened at Government Printing Works, Chairperson. And the portfolio committee issued a statement to respond to these issues after the visit. The statement is available. I'm sure members can get a copy of that statement.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. At least you didn't take so much time as I thought, but thank you very much. We will then now allow the Honorable Sheikh for the follow-up.
Yeah, thank you, Chairperson, and thank you, Honorable Minister, for the comprehensive response, and that you referred matters to relevant, credible institutions who dismissed allegations. Honorable Chair, well, it's good to hear that the police did a follow-up on the matter and found no the government printing works, government services, and its efficiency is important. Honorable Chair, I'm covered by the Minister's response. I only have this comment to make. Thank you.
Thank you. Since it's just a comment, we will then take the next question from the Honorable Nana.
Thanks, Deputy Chairperson. Minister, I hear you say the Public Service Commission found no basis on the allegations of corruption against the acting CEO. But Minister, the same Public Service Commission recommended that there should be corrective action that must be taken in relation to non-compliance with supply chain management, and then the commission singled out the same acting CEO, the general manager of strategic management, the accounting officer, and the former acting CFO. Can the minister elaborate how far are these processes, and when will they be concluded? And Minister, this relates to the facilitator that was appointed by Government Printing Works. Thank you.
Over to you, Honorable Minister.
Honorable Nana, the complaint of corruption was specifically about the appointment of the facilitator. And I'm saying to you, that matter was settled by the Public Service Commission, which said they had no evidence of corruption. The other issue you are mentioning, which was not in the allegation, it's not in my letter. My letter was about corruption. because that was the allegation, that there's been corruption. The person who wrote the matter to me even said he has recorded this corruption on his cell phone. But when the Public Service Commission went there, he said the cell phone fell into water. You know, those are some of their findings. Now, the issue of irregularities with, the supply chain, that there must be corrective action. I referred that matter. I told the portfolio committee about it. I referred it for legal advice on exactly what does it mean and how to do it. So I'm waiting for that legal advice, and I'll definitely carry it on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Apleni.
Minister, there seems to be a very thin line between what I would call the members of the party which is governing and its alliance partners. There seems to be a confusion between the government.
Can you please mute? Honorable Dango, can you mute, please? Thank you. You can continue, Honorable.
Yes. And I just want to know, Minister, if there is any clear policy that distinguishes between the government and the political organization which is in government and its alliance partners. Because most of the allegations that seem to be coming forth, you would find that even people who are outside government, belonging to particular unions, would be having hand in the governance matters. So I would like to know if there is any policy that is guiding that distinguishes between governance and the party.
Honorable Minister, since it's not directly linked to this thing, it's just a peripheral matter. You can respond or you can choose not to respond. Over to you.
Well, I can't respond. The government is government and the ruling party is the ruling party. It's different from government. The allegations that this honorable, not honorable because I don't even know who he is, that this particular person made about being lobbied by ANC, DGs, etc. The chairperson of the portfolio committee wrote to the same email asking for more details, that give us the names of these people, give us more details because we need to investigate. The chairperson of the portfolio committee got an answer which said, look, I gave you a problem, go and investigate. Don't ask me any further question, investigate. And that's when the chairperson got stuck. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Njadu.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Thank you very much, Deputy Chair. Good afternoon, Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister, for the comprehensive response that the Portfolio Committee did a thorough follow-up on the matter and found no substance to the allegations. Government printing works is a very important instrument for government services. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister.
That was just a comment. So we will continue and we will go over to question number 8 asked by the Honorable Sileko. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. This issue is indeed very important and very intriguing, Honorable Chairperson. Our systems are always down and we are not able to service our communities in the manner in which we do. Early this year, in March, just before the advent of COVID, our systems were down. We put up together a team of experts who own the systems that we are using. The IBM, CETA, SARS, a company called EOH, Department of Home Affairs, at the headquarters of CETA in Centurion. We put them there for 2 weeks to find out why our systems are down. They said they found a malware, a virus that was generating its own traffic as people apply. And so our systems are kicked out and there's an outage. They solved that one. Now it has started all over again. What we are doing now is that what we call a live capture. That means the systems which with an automatic or live capture system, which is no longer working on manual, where you apply for your ID of your license. All those systems are not web-based. So they've got a server in each and every office. So when the system go down, our people must go physically into that office to deal with the server. We are now changing them to make them web-based so that they can be changed centrally. Whether the office is in Tata or is in Polokwane or wherever, or in Pumalanga, people don't have to go there directly to the office. It can be changed CETA to redesign our network architecture, because at the moment, we don't have dual systems, meaning we're using architecture from one network. If it is down, then it's down. So we want to have two, so that when one system is down, the other one can be up. So that's exactly what we're trying to do, Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Sileko, is there a follow-up?
Goeiemiddag, dankie, adjunct voorzitter. Manbuli Sempatiswa. The problem with system interruptions and the system being offline all the time seems to have started with a new service provider. Are there any other service providers other than CETA that the department could use for its network infrastructure? And in light of the problems that the department is currently facing, is this currently being considered? Thank you very much, Chair.
Honorable Minister.
Chairperson, we are not using our systems when you apply for an ID or passport, etc. Our hardware comes mostly from IBM. We've got systems provided by CETA, system provided by SARS, and system provided by EOH, which the National Assembly, sorry, the Portfolio Committee is dealing with the matter because there have been problems with this one, and we are exchanging lawyers' letters about what to do. So there's a problem with EOH, but there's no problem with the other service providers. And as I said, we put them together at Centurion, the headquarters of CETA, to try and find out these problems. They never send ordinary people, they send CEOs of all these companies. And we send the DDG who's in charge to try and find out what the problems with our systems are. So as I'm telling you, our solution now, we think, with the advice of experts, is number one, that in the lead capture, let it be web-based, not office-based as it was happening, not a server in each of our offices around the country. And secondly, that we've got dual links, so that we have got a system from Telkom and another standby system from Vodacom, so that if Telkom goes down, I'm just giving an example, the office can switch immediately to Vodacom. What we are unable to do, Chairperson, is power outages, because our systems are also low, also go down because of power. And you know, the cables that are being stolen are not ours. They belong to network companies. So at the moment, it's a little bit better in cities where they are now using a different, different cables than the one that are being stolen. But otherwise, that's where we are at the moment.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Mita.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm happy, Chairperson, that the Minister is saying they are working very hard in terms of addressing the issue of redesigning the system so that they address the issue of network outages. But what I would like to know, Chair, is that also going to include this redesigning of the system, the mobile offices that they are using to rural areas? Because also in those mobile offices that they have, which they use in rural areas, they do experience outages. So I would like to know, this redesigning will also help the rural people in terms of not experiencing outages. when they are there to be captured in the system. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Ngqita, Minister.
Chairperson, if you may bear with me, there is a question about mobiles here, which I'm going to answer. And I'm not sure whether I must give the answer now. It's coming.
No, you can respond then on the indulgence of Honorable Ngqita, but I'm sure she understands. You will give a comprehensive response to that one there. So we will now go to Honorable Brenda Matebula.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chair. Minister, most of the people who are suffering most are the people who are living in rural areas, especially in home affairs offices. The system, they are always down. So while you are busy fixing the systems, what other method are you using to assist the communities out there? Thank you.
Well, when a system is down in one office, we refer them to the nearest available office. But as I said, I'm going to answer the question on mobiles. We also try to use mobiles in areas where the system is down. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Gillian, and Honorable Gillian is number 4. So we only take 4 supplementary questions.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Chairperson, let me also welcome the brief response from the Minister. I've only just got one question for the Minister. And the question is as follows, Minister. Is there any plan in place to deal with problems caused by cable theft and the crashing of service? Thank you, Chair.
Chairperson, I thought I've already said something about this. The cables that are being stolen belong to network companies, and we report the matter to the police. It's very difficult for Home Affairs to deal with the matter. That's why I said the only salvation, the only answer is that we realize that some networks have moved to fiber optic, which is not stolen. And in those cities where they've moved to fiber optic, it's much better. But in the areas where there are still cables and they can be stolen, it is still a perpetual struggle, and unfortunately, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. We will now continue, and you can begin to respond to question number 24 asked by the Honorable Dodo.
Yes, the department on this matter, Chairperson, has put notices on its website notifying all service providers of the scam where persons purport to be representing the department when they are not. The notice informs service providers to act with caution and provide the conduct details of departmental officials that could be conducted if any service provider is confronted with this scam or is suspicious of the scam. So they've been provided with numbers as to who they must contact in the department. Service providers are encouraged to report any fraudulent activity to South African Police Service for criminal investigation. Furthermore, Chairperson, the department has tried to trace some of these letters to the email addresses and telephone numbers provided by these scammers, but to no avail, as in most cases, the letters are sent from internet cafes. So when we try to trace them, we end up in the internet cafe, we don't know where else to go to. When the listed telephone numbers are also dialed, the response indicates that such numbers do not exist. So it is truly a scam. What must happen is that people who are receiving services must just be on the lookout, work with us and the police to uproot the scam. The scammers. Thank you very much, Honorable Dodo.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Apleni. Honorable Apleni.
Deputy Chair, you can move. The member has been disconnected. You can move.
Is out. Honorable Nana.
Thanks once again, Deputy Chair. Minister, a while ago, your department established a counter-corruption and security services branch. As you will know, its primary mandate really is to prevent and combat fraud and corruption, as well as to promote organizational integrity within the department. My question is, Minister, did all the members of the branch, which is Security Services branch, did all of them got through the vetting process? And secondly, what has been the success of the branch since it was established? Thank you.
Yes, Chairperson, I'm happy that you corrected it. It's not a unit, it's actually a branch, meaning it is headed by a DDG. Yes, you are aware that it's government policy that people get vetted, but I haven't checked whether the state security has finalized vetting everybody, because most of the time when people get appointed, it's saying subject to vetting by the state security. And sometimes it does take a long time. But at the present moment, this unit have got the person who was heading the unit left. I mean, not the unit, the branch left. And there's a vacancy there which we are trying our best to fill. Yes, there has been some degree of success because quite a number of people have been charged and fired. And the criminal issues referred to the Hawks for them to be arrested wherever they were found. But as we're saying, this particular scam which we are talking about is a very complex one because they are not scamming the department, basically. They scam members of the public who are unsuspecting and said, look, I can help you get your documents very fast with the department. I work with the department, give me so much money. I'll make sure that you get your documents. By the time we discover it, the scammer has disappeared and the poor person has got wrong documents or is, has got no documents at all. So the difficulty of this one, Honorable Nana, is that it's members of the public who are scammed in the name of the department rather than the department itself being scammed.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Karim.
Honorable Chair, is the Dovu here? It was my question, and I thought I was going to make a follow-up. I battle with to connect here, if possible, Honorable Chair.
Can we just give Honorable Karim, Honorable Dodovo, we will give you.
Okay.
Chairperson, I'm fine to withdraw if it means that Mr. Dodovo won't have a chance to speak. So.
No, Mr. Dodovo is supposed to speak because he's the fourth person, so you can speak.
Okay, I just want to ask the Minister, what's his response to the view that COVID-19 circumstances being what they are, more and more members of the public will engage with the department and the government as a whole online. So the vulnerability of both on the one hand the public and on the other hand the government departments is greater now than ever before to scamming. In these circumstances, has the department and the ministry given concerted attention to what additional measures to reduce the prospects of scamming need to be introduced, as difficult and as challenging as indeed the situation is? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Karim. Honorable Minister.
Honorable Karim, I'm not sure whether I understood your question. I'm not privy to information that the scammers or the scamming became worse because of COVID-19. As I'm saying, the scammers go especially to where migrants are applying for asylum seekers. And while they are on the queue outside the premises, that's when they call them and ask for money and say, I can help you and all that and all that. Now, at the moment, under COVID-19, you are aware that we don't have such queues anymore. For instance, the area where the scamming happens the lot, the refugee reception centers, you are aware that we have closed them down since the COVID-19 started. We are not taking any applications from anybody who is applying for asylum. So I'm not sure whether the level of scam will become worse during COVID-19. Sorry, I'm not privy to that type of information.
Sorry, I'm struggling to unmute. Honorable Dodobu, I wish you just continued because I was struggling a little bit here.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Let me firstly thank the Minister for his responses. It does show that the department is committed to deal with these scammers. And my view is that these scammers will always be there to try to defraud unsuspecting service providers. But what I want to check from the Minister is to whether is he satisfied that the department has put up the right systems and structures in place to deal with these scammers. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I don't know, is it a comment or is it a question?
Well, I
think the question. Okay. It was a question. I say, I'm asking whether is he satisfied whether are the systems in place or the current system in place, are they adequate enough to deal with the scammers?
Okay. No. Honorable Minister.
It's a question, but I thought I've already answered it when I started answering the question. That the people who are being scammed, it's not actually service providers, it's people who are looking for services from the department. Person who wants an ID or who want a visa and all that. These are the people who are being scammed by people, scammers who say, look, if you give me so much, I'll make sure that you get your document faster. So the only thing we could do, we target the victim. And as I said, in order for this victim to be, for us to target them, and with the website so that all people who look for services can get into our website and have an understanding of what must they do if they suspect a scam, or if somebody approaches them and say, I can help you. And if they are not convinced that this is a person working for Home Affairs, then we give them numbers where they must phone and say, such and such a person wants to help me. Can I go on, or is it an authentic person? That's the only thing we can do, Chairperson. But also, hoping members of the public will also not look for shortcuts. Most of the time, Honorable Dodovu, people are scammed because they are looking for fast results and shortcuts. We are faced with people who have got fraudulent IDs, and when we take them, they said, no, it's not me who I applied for the fraudulent ID, it's somebody who was helping me, and this is the person who defrauded the department, I mean, who got me a fraudulent ID, it's not me. So we have to work constantly with members of the public to make sure that they do understand that there are people who scam them of money. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. I think we're continuing to question number 3 from the Honorable Apleni. Just before the Minister responds, Honorable Arnolds, is the Honorable Apleni back, or who is going to take a follow-up?
There is an EFF member that's going to take the follow-up.
It's fine, man.
Yes.
You may then continue to respond to the question of the Honorable Apleni.
Yeah. Honorable Chairperson, this is the question I was talking about, which is asking whether we have got plans in place to set up mobile Home Affairs offices. We already have mobile units, Chairperson. It's not just a plan. It's already there. It's working. We have fitted 100 vehicles with appropriate technology for them to become Home Affairs offices and go out in the far rural villages and go out everywhere you'll find in a Home Affairs office. As I'm speaking here, we've got 14 of such units in the Eastern Cape, 9 in the Free State, 8 in Gauteng, 13 in KZN, 12 in Limpopo, 10 in Mpumalanga, 10 in Northern Cape, 9 in Northwest, and 11 in the Western Cape. And here at Hot Office, we've got 4 of them that are roaming, waiting for whatever problem there is. So there's a total of 100. Actually, as I'm speaking, the Deputy Minister of Home Affairs, Honorable Nzuza, and the Deputy Minister of Basic Education, Honorable Mhaule, together, they launched a project in Mpumalanga, whereby we're using these mobile units to give matriculants the IDs. You are aware that matriculants are back. They need IDs to write exam, and many of them do not have. So we don't want them to go and queue at Home Affairs offices. We send these units to the schools, and these are the mobile units which are equipped with everything for them to provide them with IDs. So indeed, the mobile units are working. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I was muted now. Honorable Matebula, I take it that you are the one that will take the follow-up.
Okay, thank you, Deputy. Thank you, Deputy Chair. Minister, which method are you using to alert the community that the mobile Home Affairs offices will be around their areas? Thank you.
Minister?
Yeah, Chairperson, there are timetables which I can't read now because I didn't bring them along. There are timetables whereby they inform constituency offices, they inform local councillors, they inform the traditional leaders in that area, they try to use radio stations, etc. So they use quite a number of methods in order to inform members of the public whether the units are going. For the schools, there is a timetable which has been drawn by the Minister, Deputy Minister of Home Affairs, as well as the Deputy Minister of Basic Education. There is a timetable for the school to know that they are arriving on this particular day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Christians.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Chairperson. Minister, you have explained to us that you have had talks with the Minister and the Deputy Minister of Basic Education, and that you are currently running the program to assist the schools, the matriculants with Home Affairs with their applications and so on. I would like to know from you, Minister, how is that program progressing? Because we believe that you only have 100 trucks that are servicing at the moment. How will you address the limitation of those 100 trucks, especially for the people who are living in the rural areas that are struggling, still struggling with services when it comes to the Department of Home Affairs? Thank you, Deputy Chairperson.
Honorable Minister.
Well, I'm not sure, Honorable Member, what the question refers to. We've got Home Affairs offices. These trucks are an add-on. And at the present moment, we have got 100. Of course, if we could have more than 100, we'll be very happy with that. But we are only having 100 because this is not just buying a truck. You have got to equip it, and it takes a lot of time. Honorable Chairperson, I can refer you to the National Assembly Portfolio Committee, which got worried that every day we talk of mobiles. When are they coming? And we said, no, they are with service providers. They are fitting them with all this equipment. So for now, we've been only able to obtain 100, and we'll keep on increasing the number. But we'll also keep on increasing the number of our offices. That is the only way we'll deal with the shortcomings. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Sheikh.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you, Minister, for all of the responses. My question is that while we note, there's been an improvement in the time spent in the offices of Home Affairs for services, but is there a plan to further shorten the queues and the time spent to get such services? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Sheikh. Honorable Minister.
Yeah, Chairperson, we are trying several methods. In other words, our new plan is to provide different service points rather than people getting services only from Home Affairs offices or from mobile units. We also have got a problem with the program, with the banks, whereby people who are clients of a particular bank can apply online to obtain either an ID or a passport, and then the bank will call them in and then take their biometrics and send them to Home Affairs, where they go through our backroom check office, and then from there to the government printing works. The passport or the ID is printed and is sent back to the bank where you go to collect it. We are hoping with this method, lots of people who have got bank accounts will no longer have to go to Home Affairs offices. The other method we are trying about the queues, for instance, was, during lockdown level 5, we were not issuing out birth certificates, as you are aware. And immediately when we went down to level 4, we had a backlog of 81,000 birth certificate to be issued. We made sure that to avoid the long queues, each person, each category of people have got their own queue. We've got a queue specifically to collect the ID. You've got the, to collect the birth certificate. You have got a particular queue to collect an ID that was uncollected. So we're trying to resolve this very much.
Thank you, honorable members, honorable minister. Can we now give the minister to respond to question number 25 asked by the honorable Mtetwa?
Chairperson, yes. On question 25, Chairperson, the Lesotho Special Dispensation is part of South Africa's policy position on managing migration within SADC, the objective of which was to regularize Lesotho's nationals who were in the country illegally because of socio-economic situations in their country. It allows for greater cooperation on managing migration challenges between the two countries. This helps to continue with implementing regular migratory labor flows and ensure that persons who are in South Africa are legal. The process allows Basotho to sojourn in the Republic with relaxed conditions to work, study, or conduct business. They also contribute to the growth potential of their country with remittances, which they are now able to lawfully send back home to Lesotho. No challenges were experienced in implementing this dispensation, except that the application process, which started in November 2019, that's last year, was temporarily suspended in March 2020 in compliance with the disaster management regulations and will resume after the lockdown. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Mtetwa, is there a follow-up? Honorable Mtetwa. It seems as if Honorable Mtetwa is not there. We will I'm sorry, we will give to the Honorable Sileku to answer his question.
Baie dankie adjunct voorsitter. Mandibulele mphathiswa. Mphathiswa xa usijonga kumjikelo wokuqala ibingabemi baseLesotho abayi plus minus 91,000 abaye bafaka izicelo abanazo. So uye wakhupha istatement wena ungumphathisa uthi abantu abalindelekileyo ukuthi baxhamle kule process niphinde nayivula izawuphelela ngo-2023 izaba kwalela nani le 90,000. So umbuzo wami mphathiswa, xa le nkqubo inokusiphathela amanani angaphansi kwamanani eniwalindeleyo nina nilisebe lazasekhaya, ningaphinda nicinge ukuthi niphinde nibanike abemi baseLesotho extension for another 4 years. Enkosi mphathiswa.
Honorable Minister.
Yeah, Chairperson, the Lesotho special permit was given to 94,000 Basotho some years back. I don't actually have the year here, whether it's 2010. I remember the Zimbabwe special permit was 2010. I'm not very sure about the Lesotho one. It was given to 94,000 people. They are usually given this special permit for a period of 4 years, after which we go back to cabinet. It's not the Department of Home Affairs which decides on this special permit. The Department of Home Affairs dispenses them. We have got to get permission from the cabinet. And it's indeed, the cabinet gave us another permission to extend them by another 4 years to 2023. Lesotho did ask me before we did that in November last year, because they expired in November last year. The minister, the then Minister of Home Affairs, did phone me and said, no, we must give the permits to 200,000 Basotho national, 94,000. And we resisted because we said the original number was 94,000. We don't want to expand it. He said, no, many went into hiding. They did not want to take these special permits because they thought it's a ploy by the South African government to catch them and send them back home. Then I said, well, unfortunately, we can't help. The original we gave is 94,000. We stick to it. If I go back to cabinet, ask for extensions, I don't think the cabinet will be happy with us. So at the moment, as I said, we put it in abeyance because of COVID-19. But a few of them.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Sheikh.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you, Honorable Minister, for the responses. Honorable Minister, migration between South Africa and our neighbors has always been a challenge, and this has also been exacerbated by undocumented immigrants. Now, while this dispensation is a tool to assist us to regularize Lesotho nationals, does the government have similar programs for the other SADC countries? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Sheikh. Honorable Minister.
The special permits, Honorable Member, were extended to only 3 countries in SADC. It was extended to Zimbabwe, that's why they are on a Zimbabwe special permit. It was extended to Lesotho, that's why there's a Lesotho special permit. It was extended to Angola, there's an Angolan special permit. Each one of them have got different circumstances. For instance, Zimbabwe, the idea of special permit came in 2010 when the number of Zimbabweans who gravitated into South Africa in 2008, after the collapse of the economy in Zimbabwe, or the general collapse of the economy. You remember there was a world economic collapse in 2008, and Zimbabwe was one of those countries that was hit the most. Even us were in a recession, if you remember. But many people in SADC thought South Africa is better off. And we found so many people coming in fact, 208,000 in 1 year, when the Department of Home Affairs was used to receiving about 16,000, 20,000, 35,000. They received 208,000 in 1 year. The following year, the same thing. So within 2 years, there were 400,000 people. And all of them were saying, we're asking for asylum status. We want to be refugees. And you are aware that to become a refugee, there are certain conditions you could meet. And because they couldn't meet those conditions, because they were not really refugees, they were just economic migrants, but coming in the name of refugees. So because they could not get the necessary documents, many became illegal, and they started defrauding South African IDs. So the Department of Home Affairs, realizing that they are unable to handle the situation, offered them amnesty to say, please bring back the IDs, we'll give you a special permit. And 8,700 IDs that were defrauded were brought back to the department. And the department went to cabinet to ask for this Zimbabwe special permit, and 279,000 people originally in 2010 received them. The Lesotho special permit I've already spoken about, because we are in close proximity with Basotho, many of them work in our mines, and many of them come illegally. The Angolan special permit was because by 2015, the United Nations...
And your 4 minutes have expired. So
Okay.
Let's go to the next question, the one of Honorable Sileku for number 39. Honorable Minister, over to you. Question 39.
Yes, the total number of ID cards issued by the department since it first started rolling out the Smart ID in 2013. By the end of March this year, the department had issued 15,990,524 Smart IDs. Now the question about how much it cost us to issue the Smart ID, unfortunately, Chairperson, we don't have any revenue stream classified as Smart ID and another revenue stream classified as Green Pagoded. It's one stream. And so we are unable to separate them. And remember that we don't charge anybody who's applying for an ID. Those who are turning 16 for the first time and go to fetch an ID for the first time, they pay nothing. Those who have reached the age of 60, they also pay nothing. But those who are in between, they especially between 16 and 60, and they want replacement IDs because they lost the first one, they pay 140 rand. And the total amount collected from both Smart ID and Green Park coded ID since 2013 is 1,570,023,741 rand and 41 cents as by yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Honorable Sileko, you want to do a follow-up?
Thank you very much, Deputy Chair. Minister, considering the target of 38 million, you set yourself and your department by 2025, do you anticipate or foresee any impediments that may lead to your department not achieving this target? Thank you very much.
Honorable Minister, over to you. You're almost through.
Yes, our impediment is always the question we have asked earlier, we have answered earlier on, our downtime. When our systems are down, we get stuck. During March, when our systems were down, instead of saving about 20,000 applications, the number per day, 20,000 per day, the number went to something like 8,000 per day. And of course, that delays us. So that is always an impediment, and it worries us greatly.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Audrey Maleka. Maleka? Audrey?
Oh, thank you, Chair. I don't know, I'm having a problem with the network now. Honorable Minister, one of the main reasons for the introduction of the Smart ID card was to improve the security weaknesses that were identified in the Green ID book. Am I correct in my assessment that there have been no weak points so far? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. You may respond.
Yes, Chairperson, that indeed is true. The Smart ID was introduced in 2013 because the green barcoded ID can easily be defrauded, very easily. I've just told you of the 8,700 that were brought, which were defrauded by the migrants from the nationals from Zimbabwe. So it shows that you can easily defraud it. Up to so far, the green barcoded ID, we have not yet learned any problems, but I want to confess that there is no system that is 100% foolproof. Scammers or thugs always find a way, but up to so far. And we are confident, Chairperson, because the banks, the reason that the banks want to help us, the banks have informed us that they have learned over the years since 2013, that if every client of a bank can have a Smart ID, then the banks will save 50 million rand in identity fraud. And that's why they said they are prepared to help us and make their offices available to issue Smart ID, because they know they are to gain from that. So up to so far, we haven't had lots of problems with Smart ID. We are very happy about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Finally, we will give to the Honorable Brenda Matebula.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chair. Minister, you have mentioned that those who are above 60, you have issued them with free smart card. So what about if that particular person loads the smart card, when they go for the second time, do you charge them a certain amount? Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you, Honorable Minister.
We don't charge people who are taking smart IDs for the first time at the age of 16 be charged. because there need to be some control. If not, people will easily just lose their IDs all the time. So we want people to take care of their ID. It's a very, very important procession. So we charge people when they want a reissue, and that amount is 140 rand.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Minister, we really want to say thank you very much for the really comprehensive responses. It was very enlightening, and we want to now give over to Honorable Nyambi to chair for the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation. Thank you once again, Minister Motsoaledi.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Pleasure, my pleasure.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Deputy Chairperson. Greeting colleagues. Let me also join and welcome Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Minister Pando. The first question is from Honorable Mula. Honorable Minister.
Good afternoon, Chairperson and honorable members. Thank you very much for the opportunity. The response to the question is as follows. Our missions abroad continue to provide support to stranded or destitute South Africans on behalf of the government, as well as to facilitate repatriation flights from across the world. We've repatriated over 11,000 South Africans thus far from all parts of the globe. Our missions have been absolutely wonderful in providing what we call consular support to stranded or destitute South African citizens. That is the response. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Mula, do you have any follow-up question? Mula? The next one will be from Honorable Arnott. Honorable Arnott.
Thank you, Chairperson, and greetings to the Minister. Minister, thank you for giving us the information in terms of the more than 11,000 South Africans that was assisted by your department. Your department is also currently faced and were faced with the serious challenges in its efforts to facilitate the repatriation of South Africans who were stranded and still stranded in other countries in the light of the coronavirus pandemic. In your interactions with governments and other countries now, which countries, if there is countries that did not cooperate in terms of assistance, and if so, which countries is that? Thanks.
Honorable Minister.
Well, thank you very much, Honorable Arnold, for the question. There are no countries that did not cooperate because it is part of international law that countries must provide support to citizens who are stranded outside one's country. And so it is practice that when there are emergency situations brought about by the pandemic or other disaster, countries will collaborate, work together to ensure that they support each other to bring back their citizens. So, for example, we had many tourists who were locked down in South Africa following the introduction of the restrictions at level 5. We had no international flights out that were permitted, but countries wanted to repatriate their citizens just as we wanted to bring South Africans back. So we collaborated with Germany, with Belgium, with the United Kingdom, that they would have a plane load of their citizens going back to their country, and we would then have the plane coming back full of South African citizens. All of that was done in cooperation. Of course, it was not easy to arrange always because all countries have various measures to prevent the import of infections into their countries. But we were able to negotiate, to make arrangements, and to ensure that each of us facilitated the return of our citizens. And there's been absolutely amazing collaboration across the world, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The next supplementary question is from Honorable Mikalakis. Honorable Mikalakis.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. Good evening, Honorable Minister, or good afternoon. Honorable Minister, thank you very much, firstly, for the efforts that you make, along with so many others, to repatriate South African citizens. But there are a few countries where it's still a concern and they're still struggling to come back home. One of the indications that I've received was that China is one such a problem, where there are about 200 South Africans stranded there. It seems to be a problem with flights not being able to come back. Now, later on in the question paper, there will be a question around what is going on in China specifically. But in light thereof, is it not perhaps a worrisome factor? And what is the situation currently there that will hopefully give some hope to those 200 South Africans who find themselves stranded in the Republic of China? Thank you, Minister.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. We continue to work with various countries in order to get our citizens back. Part of our challenge has been, when we arrange for repatriation, there are some citizens who choose to remain in the country. And then after we have repatriated, they then began to get into difficulties in the foreign country and seek our assistance when we've already repatriated hundreds of South Africans. So new numbers keep coming up from countries from which we have already repatriated. And the over 200 that are referred to in China, the honorable members would recall the first repatriation was of students and other citizens from Wuhan in China. And that particular repatriation was very successful. We had excellent cooperation from the Chinese authorities. And with any remainder, we will continue to work closely with the government of China to ensure that we are able to return our citizens to South Africa.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The third supplementary question is from Honorable Labuskaghni. Honorable Labuskaghni.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good afternoon, Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister, in spite of all the efforts that you've mentioned and that's been done, there are still very grave concerns. And one of them is that the prices of the SAA flights have been increased by roughly 133% in under a week. Rumors have it also that South African ambassadors in certain places are refusing our citizens help if they do not hold the SA ticket. Why is the ANC government allowing SAA to run an extortionist racket by limiting who can land in South Africa and by price gouging tickets by over 100%, as detailed in a complaint by the DA to the Competition Commission? Have you contacted your Cabinet colleagues, Minister on Transport and Home Affairs in this regard? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Well, clearly, we do not set the ticket prices of South African Airways, but we do work in close collaboration with all the airlines. And when complaints have been directed to my attention, we have spoken to Minister Gordon and to other colleagues to ensure that there aren't any abuses. If the Competition Commission is investigating, we shall get the truth of the particular cases. However, there have been instances where persons who wish to travel, who claim that they're stranded, are actually individuals who are trying to come into South Africa who should not or are not permanent residents or citizens. So there have been some nebulous and questionable claims of being stranded South Africans. I wish to challenge the Honorable Labuskakni by saying it is not true that our heads of mission and our embassy staff have not been providing assistance. They have been absolutely heroic in the manner in which they have responded through using their own funds to support people by providing them with food parcels or basic needs in circumstances where South African citizens were stranded and where the only assistance would come from a South African mission. So I would definitely want evidence as to who the individual is who was denied assistance. But the 11,000 who have returned have been able to successfully come home due to being assisted by the South African government and by the missions of the people of South Africa, throughout the world.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The fourth supplementary question is from Honourable Khai. Honourable Khai.
Thank you very much, Honourable House Chairperson, and thank you, Minister. We also appreciate the efforts that the department and government are doing to make sure that the South Africans are returned to the country. Honourable Minister, you're saying that the repatriation happens in a situation where a citizen of another country would then be repatriated from South Africa to that particular country, and then South Africans from that particular country will then be repatriated back to South Africa. What happens in a country, in a situation where you don't have such an arrangement, you just have South Africans stranded in a particular country, and then there are no exchanges of repatriation? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you very much, Chairperson. What has happened in such instances is that we've been able to arrange, sometimes the citizens themselves have arranged chartered flights that we then facilitate a regulatory permission for, or we've arranged a South African Airways plane or other airlines, because Chair, members should recall that many of the South Africans who are stranded overseas were persons, one, who were on holiday, they were tourists, the lockdown was instituted, and countries all stopped international flights. So we have to negotiate on that basis for them to be able to board a specially arranged flight in order to come back to South Africa. That has been done several times. Then there are others, such as in the Middle East, for example, who are employed persons, and due to the lockdown, several businesses are closing down, they are reducing staff due to loss of income. Such persons, their contract is ended, they want to come back home to enjoy the support of their families in South Africa because they no longer have a job where they were resident. We've also been able to assist those South Africans to come back. With some, we've encouraged the actual employer to bear the costs so that it doesn't become a burden for the returning South African worker, nor for the South African government. So it's a range of arrangements that have had to be made, but we're very pleased that up to this point, we have over 11,000 South Africans back home. I'm aware from data that our missions have that there are over 5,000 that still say they require assistance. And wherever our missions are able to provide support and where we can arrange for travel back home, we do so. We should recall as well, it's not only flying into South Africa, there are also South Africans coming back by land, through land borders. I will be answering a question in that regard later this afternoon. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Minister, we now come to question mark number 2 asked by Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. It's very similar question to the one we've just dealt with. I hope it will generate new follow-up questions. We are, as I've said earlier, providing what is called consular support and services to South Africans who are registered. Remember, you must approach the South African Embassy or High Commission to say, I'm stranded, I'm in distress, I need the assistance of South Africa's government to come back. I am not aware, according to the High Commission, of the 9 South Africans who the Honourable Member Arnold says are stranded in Namibia. What we have on our register is 193 South Africans who are registered and for whom we are currently in discussion with the authorities of Namibia as to the repatriation of this 193. The process that we follow is we register all citizens who request to be repatriated to South Africa. We pre-clear their names through the Department of Home Affairs. Once it is proven that these are citizens, our immigration officers at the borders are informed and provided with a list of names and ID and passport details so that we are fully compliant with the lockdown regulations. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The first follow-up is from Honourable Arnott. Honourable Arnott.
Thank you, Chairperson. That is one of the reasons why I have mentioned one example just to get now responses and follow-ups in terms of if there is any challenges. But let me say, Minister, your department has been in contacted those South Africans in Namibia, and they were assisted. And 6 of them are currently in the Northern Cape under quarantine. But your department did assist in terms of the promptly responded to the request that was made. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Arnott, for the acknowledgement. The next supplementary question, I'll allow the Minister to comment first before I get to the next one. Honourable Minister.
Comments, not a question.
I shall convey that confirmation by the Honourable Arnolds to the hardworking team in the department and the High Commission in Namibia. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The second supplementary question is from Honourable Shaik. Honourable Shaik.
Yeah, thank you, Chairperson, and thank you, Minister, for your response. And during these unprecedented times of COVID-19, there have been many cases of South Africans who have been stranded abroad and were assisted by government, and many were happy about the level of care shown and assistance given by the South African government. Thank you, Minister, for that. But Minister, you have referred to consular support to our nationals in Namibia. Have there been challenges with consular services during this COVID period in other parts of the continent and the world? Thank you, Chair.
Honourable Minister.
Well, I think at the beginning, Chairperson, thank you again, and thank you to Honourable Sheikh. There were certainly problems because what we were confronted with is a situation that was totally unexpected, that we hadn't prepared ourselves for. And I frankly was astounded at the numbers that we had to deal with in terms of requests for assistance. Our missions found themselves inundated with requests for help. When the lockdown was implemented, it was just as other countries shut down their airports. We actually had citizens who had just booked out of their hotel accommodation and were at airports waiting to board planes, and they were unable to return home. Our missions were totally thrown out of kilter, but credit to them. I think in a very short time, they were able to recover. They marshaled themselves and began to find a means of identifying those who needed assistance and ensure that we had the correct information. We had to develop a whole protocol, Chairperson, as to how we would manage this process. And as I say, for all of us as countries, this was, a first time. My colleagues, other foreign ministers, when we converse privately on what we've had to do in the past few months as ministers of foreign affairs, we often joke that we have become excellent travel agents and we know what our next career ambitions should be. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The next supplementary question is from Honorable Boshoff. Honorable Boshoff.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Good afternoon, Minister. Minister, the border between South Africa and Namibia recently opened, and we are very grateful for that. However, the South African-Zimbabwean border remains the biggest challenge, which also has to handle any traffic from Zambia. Minister, what is currently under consideration with regard to this border? Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Minister.
Well, thank you again, Chairperson and Honorable Boshoff. We process repatriation on the basis of information that we gather, on the verification I've referred to, and the regulatory processes relevant to different departments, be it Home Affairs or transport or indeed trade and industry. So we deal with each matter on a case-by-case basis. On the matter of border challenges, clearly, if a country has imposed a lockdown, we have to negotiate with them the arrangements as to either the passage of goods or the return of citizens. With respect to business interaction, we've agreed as the National Corona Command Council that we must facilitate the movement of goods. And so we are able to ensure that that happens. With respect to persons, I've described the process that we follow. So, we're in touch with Zimbabwe where we need to be in touch with them. Zambia would communicate with us from time to time, or any country that requires our help. But in order to ensure that we achieve the objective of protecting our citizens and avoiding the importation of further infections, we've got to be rigorous in our processes to ensure that we are managing this whole situation appropriately. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The fourth supplementary question is from Honourable Okam. Honourable Okam.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. Honourable Minister, at this stage, it seems that the only thing that's crossing the border between Zimbabwe and South Africa without any problems are illegal cigarettes. Just joking on that one. Well, I'm not joking, but to come to the question, what pressure will your department and government place on the government of Zimbabwe to open their borders and allow South African citizens that desperately are waiting to return to their home country to do so? Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you very much, Chairperson. I must say that I don't think cigarettes that are illegal are a joke, and it's just something that I find a bit peculiar. If there are citizens of South Africa who are in Zimbabwe and they wish to come home, our High Commission is there for them to approach. When we have the details, we will ensure that we work with the government of Zimbabwe to ensure their return home. This is happening almost on a daily basis. So it would be very useful for me to be informed by the Honorable Oakam if there are citizens he's aware of who are being prevented from returning by any government. Because when we get the names, when they approach our High Commission, we do all we can to facilitate. And the returns have been by land as well as by air. And this is ongoing day to day. I get daily reports on returns. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Minister, we now come to the question numbered 28, asked by Honourable Mthethwa. Honourable Minister.
Chairperson, yes, indeed. The government has received reports of alleged ill treatment and discrimination directed at Africans broadly, including South Africans living in Guangzhou in particular, where a new wave of COVID-19 infections was claimed to be coming from overseas arrivals, particularly Africans. It was said that African nationals were experiencing consistent harassment and humiliation by being subjected to medical examinations involuntarily and forced quarantine, despite being tested negative for COVID-19. The ambassadors of Africa as a group have actively engaged the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Beijing on these allegations, and these engagements continue with assurance by the government of China that these matters are being addressed to ensure that all African nationals resident in China are treated fairly and on par with other foreign nationals in the province of Guangzhou. Our African Union Commission Chair, Mr. Faki Mahamat, also had meetings with the Chinese ambassador in Addis in Ethiopia to express the African Union's concerns about the allegations and to seek explanations. As the current chair of the African Union, we made our support public and clear for the actions of Commissioner Mahamat. In mid-April, the Chinese Foreign Minister, Mr. Wang Yi, informed Chairperson Mahamat that the matter would be addressed and that measures are underway in that region to improve the situation of Africans in line with a strong partnership between China and Africa. We also have ensured that our mission is available to all South Africans that might find themselves confronted by these challenging and difficult allegations. And we've been assured by the embassy in South Africa, as well as the Foreign Ministry of the People's Republic of China, that these matters are being addressed. I have welcomed the assurances from the Chinese authorities that they strive to fight discrimination, and particularly discrimination against foreign visitors to their country. And I've urged the relevant authorities to investigate the reports and to take appropriate remedial measures. The allegations have been of great concern to me because they certainly don't link to the excellent links that we have as South Africa and China. And so we have really worked with the authorities to ensure that through mutual collaboration, we fight this allegation of discrimination toward African people. I've received consistent assurance from China that it has taken steps to ensure that the authorities in Guangdong and in the capital city, Guangzhou, an equal treatment of all foreign nationals. And we will continue to monitor the situation. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Minister. Honorable Mthethwa. Honorable Mthethwa. It seems as if it's not connected. Honorable Mikalakis. you'll have the first opportunity for the supplementary question. Honorable Kalakis.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Honourable Minister, the actions taken both by the foreign ministers on the African continent as well as the Chinese authorities, as you've mentioned, seem fairly serious and drastic, as it should be. However, that indicates to me that it's more than just mere allegations. The persons imposing these inhumane treatment on African nationals are also part of the Chinese authorities. Will you, if you haven't done so yet, I haven't picked it up, but will you openly condemn such actions by the Chinese authorities? And what has this incident or these incidents done to our relationship with the People's Republic of China? Thank you very much.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. We have a long established and historical relationship with the People's Republic of China that was begun many decades ago and was part of the whole history of struggle for freedom in South Africa. This close friendship has continued beyond those times. I wish to assure the Honorable Mikalakis that I indeed issued a public statement condemning the allegations and the actions of discrimination and stigmatization that have been brought to our attention. We, in the statement, made it very clear that all the alleged actions were abhorrent to a country such as South Africa and were not in any way in concert with the excellent relationship and partnership that we enjoy with the People's Republic of China. I believe it was following our public statement and the actions by the African Union Commission Chair that you had a very visible reaction from the highest echelons of the Chinese government. So they have taken action, and we work and will continue, as I say, to devote interest to ensuring that we don't have such incidents in future.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Arnott.
Thank you, Chairperson. Let me just say that we condemn in the strongest terms the abuse and racist mistreatment of Africans living and working in China. And as an international community, we must come together and fight the spread of COVID-19 instead of engaging in racial discrimination based on unfounded claims that Africans are spreading the virus. From reports, many Africans were forcefully evicted from their apartments and thrown into the streets, and even with their infant children. And thank you, Minister, that you have publicly condemned this treatment. But just in terms of clarity, can you just confirm if there were South Africans also that was affected by this situation? Thanks.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. We did not have direct evidence of South Africans, Honorable Arnold, affected in Guangzhou, the city in which it was said these actions occurred. But we did have complaints from South Africans in other parts of China who were feeling a sense of being watched, of being discriminated against, of a negative reaction. You would have noted that 2 days ago, President Ramaphosa spoke of the stigma that is attaching to the whole experience of the pandemic once persons become aware of an infected person. Unfortunately, when you have epidemics of this nature, the reaction of people is often one which is discriminatory, which smacks of prejudice and which actually doesn't indicate knowledge of the situation individuals and citizens are confronted by. So it means all of us must do more to ensure people understand this pandemic, this COVID-19, and that stigma and labeling do not become part of the reaction of individuals towards those who are infected or to family members who are affected. You would recall we've had to fight prejudice and discrimination as we respond to the HIV effect in our country and the number of persons who became infected or families that were affected. So discrimination appears to accompany fear where communities or individuals feel threatened. I think what we need to do is continue to engage with the Chinese authorities. I'm pleased that they actually approached the relevant province, the regional government, as well as the local government, because when there continued to be reports, the Chinese government actually went directly to the local city government to say it is their responsibility to ensure that the local population is educated as to how they should conduct themselves. And we began to see a decline in complaints and reports at that locally based following that locally based set of actions. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Minister, we now come to question mark 4.2 asked by Honourable Mikalakis. Honourable Minister.
Chairperson, I understand there's been a lot of back and forth on this matter of the Budapest Convention. It is a regional convention of the Council of Europe. And while it's a very important international treaty addressing internet and computer-based crimes, we have agreed that we do not believe we should ratify the instrument, as we have not as yet developed a piece of legislation that we believe would be, we don't have rather in existence, a universal piece of legislation which all the world can draw on as an example in formulating appropriate domestic legislation. And so we felt what we would like to do is ensure that in the domestic sphere, we begin to put different aspects of statute in place in order to begin to reflect the best practice in terms of regulations and laws against internet and computer-based crimes. We also are reluctant, Chairperson, to attach our signature or ratification to a regional convention, because it really is set to apply to those regional members and participants and partners in the regional body. It was not designed as a multilateral global policy that all member states of the United Nations might attach to. So we are really looking at the UN Convention against transnational organized crime as a basis for developing appropriate rather local domestic law in this area. But our sentiment is that this particular convention of the Council of Europe should not be one that we would ratify. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Supplementary is from Honorable Mikalakis. Honorable Mikalakis.
Thank you very much, Deputy or House Chairperson. Honorable Minister, we are in the fortunate position that tomorrow, hopefully, the National Council of Provinces will be approving and passing the cyber crimes bill, which is a very welcome piece of legislation that helps us deal with a lot of these issues. It is also greatly based on research that is to a large extent based on the content of the Budapest Convention. The problem is that it's the alternative convention from the United Nations, as you know, will take quite a reasonable time to actually put in place. These things don't happen overnight. The problem also is that this new piece of legislation relies on extraterritorial jurisdiction. A cyber terrorist attack will not most likely come from within the borders of South Africa. The person who launches such an attack on South Africa, and it's not unlikely that it will happen, will most probably do so outside of our borders. For us to be able to establish some form of jurisdiction so that that person can be prosecuted within our borders, we will need to have some form of an agreement, either bilateral or multilateral, in place. Now, the Budapest Convention and the African Convention are the only two that are currently in place. The African Convention is almost not signed by any country in Africa. The Budapest Convention is signed actually by 5 African countries, as well as 65 other countries internationally. Do you not think that in light of the fact that if there's a cyber terrorist attack on South Africa tonight, attacking our critical infrastructure, that it's necessary, at least until we have a mechanism in place at the United Nations, to ratify this document so that at least if the perpetrator comes from one of those 65 countries, we will be able to negotiate on the basis of acquiring jurisdiction so that that person can be brought to account. And if not, who will then be, or what will your response then be to the public if we are in a position not to be able to prosecute a person who launches a crippling cyber terrorist attack against our nation? Thank you, Minister.
Thank you. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I repeat that we believe that the convention and some of the other regional instruments are important instruments for us to draw on as we work as member states of the United Nations to develop a universal instrument which would be multilateral for combating cybercrime. And let me reiterate that it is not true that we do not have statutory provision that would allow us to prosecute any individual that may commit the form of crimes Mr. Mikalakis referred to in his follow-up. There is the UN Convention Against Transnational Organized Crime, which is able to be utilized for such prosecution of criminals. We also have domestic legislation that can be used to prosecute criminals, such as our International Cooperation in Criminal Matters Act, as well as the Extradition Act. We also, of course, have assistance in mutual legal assistance provisions. So there are a range of instruments that can be utilized, which would allow our criminal fighting agencies to act should such incidents occur in our country. We are able to invoke a number of domestic laws, such as the Protection of Constitutional Democracy Against Terrorist and Related Activities Act, such as the International Cooperation in Criminal Matters Act. So there are instruments which are part of South African law that could be used should the occurrences the Honorable Mikalakis has referred to take place. And I believe that we should continue to work in the ambit of the United Nations to develop an appropriate universal convention. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Boshoff.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Minister, I've now listened to your questions and it's given me a lot of food for thought. And I'd therefore like to ask, is it a mere chance that Russia and China are also opposed to this treaty, and that although we were one of the original signatories to the treaty, we became opposed to it the moment Russia indicated their opposition to the said treaty. Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Chairperson. I've never been approached by my colleague in Russia nor my colleague in China that we should be opposed to this particular regional convention, nor have we ever discussed its ratification or non-ratification with them. South Africa is a sovereign nation which makes decisions on its interests on its own. So no, there has been no influence by Russia or China with respect to our perspective on this matter. This is our view. We have these pieces of legislation I've referred to. I don't believe they exist in the two countries Honorable Boshoff has referred to. We will develop our own cybercrime legislation. We do cooperate with the European Union, with various countries within the Union, with countries such as Russia, China, India, Brazil, the United States, many on these matters of internet and cybersecurity, and will continue to do so. But our belief is that the instrument must be one that enjoins all of us as members of the United Nations and that provides an appropriate universal platform to address matters of cybercrime. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The next supplementary question is from Honourable Dango. Ambassador Dango.
Thank you very much, Minister. Minister, Article 25 of the said convention speaks about mutual assistance. Now, mutual assistance means very many things and very many definitions. Two of the countries who acceded to this particular convention, one is Israel and the other is Morocco. I'm sure that our definition of terrorism would not be the same as the definition of Israel's. We would have a very different definition. So we're talking about mutual assistance there. It could be a challenge that we face with. In fact, when we go to the UN chapter, Minister, I think the debate about the definition of what terrorism means would be a challenge, and I think ours would come out on the basis of human rights and the question of equal rights in the world. Thank you very much, Minister. And Minister, incidentally, let me just congratulate you on the work you've done to bring and repatriate people back.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much to the Honourable Dango. I shall communicate his thanks to the team, because it's really been the officials, particularly in diplomatic and consular services, who've done the hard work. It is true that with respect to a number of countries throughout the world, they would have very different principles and values in comparison to South Africa and its constitutional framework, which upholds the rights and interests, particularly of the most marginalized and vulnerable. So there would be a difference. However, mutual legal assistance is an international practice that allows countries, on the basis of the logic of a particular legal issue, to determine whether or not they assist each other, whether or not they should collaborate. The honorable members would recall that given the right to life in our constitution and various judgments around the right to life and the relationship to the death penalty, there may be instances where we are unable to collaborate due to jurisprudence in our country, as well as the constitutional provisions and Chapter 2 of our Constitution. So, mutual legal assistance is an international practice, but it itself is governed by your own legal framework and instruments in your country. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Honorable Labuskachne.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honourable Minister, I know we've referred to the ratifying of the treaties and so on, and you referred to some of it, and also said that referred to a regional treaty, and you also mentioned that a treaty will only be ratified by us, or maybe I didn't understand clearly, if all the United Nations countries ratifies it. My question is, the situation is there are currently 65 countries worldwide, as been mentioned by Honourable Michalakis, who have ratified this treaty. These include the 5 African nations. Is it still being regarded as exclusively European or regional tool, even if it might ensure that South Africa is to come to some extent safeguarded pending a United Nations treaty? And Minister, how many countries needs to ratify a treaty before it will be recognized by South Africa?
Thank you, Honourable Minister.
The point is not that all UN countries must ratify. The point is it is only an instrument developed by the United Nations, which is one that is designed to be considered by all countries in the world. The European Council is made up of a few countries, and countries are free to attach their signature to any regional convention that the European Council develops. That's their choice. But we cannot, as South Africa, say 5 African countries have signed on and therefore South Africa should sign on. We do not believe that's an appropriate instrument for us. Hence the direction we have chosen of working in the broader UN family. There is a team, an expert team put together, which is set to develop a comprehensive international convention on countering the use of information and communications technologies, the abusive use of these. We then would work in the ambit of that committee, because we still believe we would like something enjoying far broader support than just 5 African countries for us to become party to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Let me indicate to Honourable Ngita and Honourable Muyemang that I've seen your hands. I'm dealing with them with first come, first serve. Honourable Labuskachne was the 4th one. So that was the last supplementary in this one. Honourable Minister, we now come to question marked 36 asked by Honourable Klute. Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Firstly, Chairperson, could I say that I'm not aware of numerous countries seeking an investigation into the People's Republic of China's handling of COVID-19. I'm aware of one country that has made such a statement. The World Health Assembly held its 73rd session in May this year and adopted by consensus a landmark resolution on COVID-19 response, which was co-sponsored by more than 130 countries, including South Africa and the entire Africa group, which seeks to bring the world together in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. We were very clear in the World Health Assembly that all countries need to work together if we are to defeat this pandemic. We expressed concerns about the negative impact of the pandemic and stressed that we must collaborate internationally. We said, in fact, The level of partnership we've seen, while good, calls for even greater partnership. We also agreed that the Director General of the World Health Organization should initiate, and in consultation with member states, a stepwise process of impartial, independent, and comprehensive evaluation, including using existing mechanisms to review experience gained, not to find blame with anyone, and lessons learned from the WHO coordinated international health response to COVID-19, including a number of issues that we'd asked to be looked into, such as whether the mechanisms available to the World Health Organization were sufficient, the functioning of the international health response, the status of implementation of the previous review committee reports, the contribution of the World Health Organization to the global efforts of the United Nations. This resolution indicated very strong willingness on the part of WHO to cooperate with member states and the international community, and we believe signaled its strong commitment to transparency. We are fully supportive of the evaluation that was agreed by the World Health Assembly, and we are therefore of the view that any investigation into the global response must be conducted in terms of that international resolution and not some particular chasing of one country by another that is often in competition with it. We also believe that any such evaluation must be objective, impartial, must be science-based and professional, and can only be pursued after the virus has been brought under control. We shouldn't be misled into being diverted into quarrels between nations. The focus now has to be the pandemic, and this is what the government of South Africa is insisting upon. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The first supplementary is from Honourable Klute. Honourable Klute.
Thank you, House Chair, and thank you to the Minister for the answer. I just read that we saw a spike of 19,000 new infections over the weekend, and there's talks about the islands. Do you know this question?
Honourable Klute.
We can't hear Honourable Klute.
Honourable Klute, we can't hear. Honourable, we'll give him an opportunity when it's sorted. He'll give us an indication. Let's go to Honourable Okam. Honourable Okam.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. Honourable Minister, is it not of paramount importance for us, not aimed at a specific country, but in the interest of humanity, to call for such an investigation, to ensure that humanity is not faced with a problem of this nature reaching the same proportions again? Maybe we should call for something like that. Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Well, I'm not sure what more to say, because as I'm saying to the Honourable Okam, this matter was discussed at the World Health Assembly, and a resolution was adopted, which does say that there should be a process of impartial, independent, and comprehensive evaluation. So this is no longer a query, a proposal. It is an adopted resolution which will be implemented. But all countries, Honourable Okam, agreed that the task now is to protect ourselves and our populations, is to combat this pandemic, devoting resources and time to evaluations when infections are rising, when ICU beds are running out, when we do not have ventilators is a distraction. We must focus on combating this disease, protecting ourselves, our families, and our nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Honorable Sheikh.
Yeah, thank you, Chairperson, and thank you, Honorable Minister, for your response. And Minister, I can't agree more with you that the international collaboration as well as focus on the pandemic is key. And I'm not sure if this investigation into the handling of the virus by the People's Republic of China will assist us in any way in the current fight against COVID-19, except maybe for a narrow, misinformed political agenda against China. Thank you.
Honorable Minister, your comment?
I would agree with the Honorable Sheikh that really this is something, it's a proposal that is unwarranted and that doesn't assist the world in the task, a difficult one that is confronting us. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Honorable Minister, we now come to the question marked 4.3 asked by Nana. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much again, Chairperson. The response is yes, the SADC operates and takes decisions on the basis of unity and consensus with the goal of ensuring, as per the SADC Treaty, that we promote sustainability and equitable economic growth and socio-economic development, which would be directed at ensuring poverty alleviation with the aim of eradicating poverty, enhancing the standard and quality of life of the people of our region, and supporting those who are disadvantaged through greater regional integration. We are satisfied as South Africa with the prevailing unity within SADC, and we believe that the available mechanisms are sufficient to address disagreements which might arise from time to time. Of course, as the Honorable Member points out in his question, multilateral organizations such as SADC are based on voluntary affiliation. Members who wish to take up, countries that wish to take up membership consider issues of mutual and material benefit that could be derived from such belonging. SADC has displayed vibrancy. In fact, I believe it's one of the most vibrant regional economic communities in Africa. It's been vibrant in its pursuit of regional economic security and the political interests of its members. Member states have been very committed to the objectives of the organization, its principles and its programs, as outlined in a range of instruments. So we continue to have confidence in our organization. We had a fantastic meeting of the organ on politics, peace, defense, and security of ministers just last week of SADC, and the proceedings illustrated the unity I'm referring to in a very, very good fashion. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Nana.
Thanks, House Chair, and thanks, Minister, for your response. I'm really not so sure about the vibrance of SADC, Minister, because it keeps boggling my mind that it took 2.5 years of silence by SADC before SADC could make a pronouncement on the first attack by Al-Suma Wajama in Cabo Delgado province in Mozambique. For 2.5 years, SADC was quiet. And in the meanwhile, the Mozambican government saw it fit to rather approach selected individual countries, such as our country, South Africa and Russia, for assistance to deal with the problem of terrorism in their country. And they did not approach SADC. My question is, Minister, is it the slow reaction and the unwillingness to call on the region to help, not a reflection of mistrust among member countries in SADC,
Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Well, I think belonging to a club, which I'm sure Mr. Nana does in other areas of his life, doesn't mean that you give up all your decision-making sovereignty. Countries have a right to conduct their security and international affairs as they desire. SADC doesn't impose a particular approach on a country. So we were pleased to interact with Mozambique at a range of different levels on the challenges confronting it. When we were asked through the president that greater support should be provided, this was and is being appropriately considered, but it is entirely up to the independent decision of Mozambique as to how it reacts on any matter of a security, international, social, political, or other character. Being a member of SADC or the UN doesn't subsume your particular national interests or approaches. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The next supplementary question is from Honorable Poshoff. Honorable Poshoff.
Thank you very much, House Chair, Minister. Has Mozambique had any diplomatic talks with SADC as a whole or any individual SADC nations on the deployment of troops to their northern province to curb the spread of the terrorism? If so, what was South Africa's response? Thank you, House Chair.
Honorable Minister.
I'm not aware, Chairperson, thank you again, of a request for a deployment of troops. There have been discussions as to providing support, but I'm not aware of any request for boots on the ground. Those discussions are ongoing, and the two countries do work very closely together. As to whether Mozambique has spoken to countries, I know that they've spoken to several SADC member states. They also had a briefing to all the members of SADC in the organ meeting, which is chaired this year by Zimbabwe. And the president of Mozambique and his ministers were present at that organ meeting to give a full briefing to the region. So where we are able to provide support and where requests are made, we consider them and react within our abilities as South Africa. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The next supplementary is from Honorable Dango. Honorable Dango.
Thank you very much, Minister. Minister, I think what we should be encouraging, Minister, is the harmonization of civil society within SADC, and especially the business community, so we can take advantage of the Africa Free Trade Agreement. In my experience, Minister, having served in both the Maghreb region and other regions, SADC is the most cohesive region in the African continent. Thank you very much, Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Dango. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you to Honorable Dango. That has been my own observation. This is a very integrated region. There's a great deal of collegiality. There's a strong attachment to the decisions that we make. I'm sure honorable members have been able to observe the role President Ramaphosa has played as facilitator of a political resolution appointed as facilitator by SADC to assist Lesotho to address the political and security challenges that the Kingdom of Lesotho has been confronted with. And SADC has been most appreciative of the role of President Ramaphosa, but it's been a role where the facilitator sought to unify the nation to develop an appropriate constitutional framework that would create the basis for a lasting peace. This is the character of SADC. We are oriented toward development, toward political stability, and toward the economic prosperity of our various nations in the region. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Minister, we now come to question mark number 5 from Honourable Mikalakis, which is your last one for today. Your last question mark number 5. Honourable Minister.
Yes. Chairperson, I've just got the papers really mixed up. Give me a minute, sorry.
No problem, Honourable Minister. It's mark number 5 is the last one for the day for you.
I'm trying to see. It's on the Budapest Convention.
Done. Yes.
I think my responses would be very much similar to what I had said earlier in responding to the earlier question by Mr. Mikalakis, and that is that in the absence of a universal instrument to address cybercrime matters and pending the finalization of the bill he mentioned, the Cybercrimes Bill, we can prosecute cyber criminals through the various statutes that I referred to on MLA, mutual legal assistance, and bilateral agreements that are in existence, which provide for international cooperation under the UN Convention against transnational organized crime. I also made reference to domestic legislation that can be used for purposes of prosecution. However, given that we are aware that some of these pieces of legislation include onerous demands in terms of proof and agreement and cooperation between states, we do need a piece of legislation that allows us to be rather more nimble than is anticipated by the statutes I have referred to. And this is why the Cybercrimes Bill and its passage is of paramount importance. So I think we believe that we do have the legal basis for action. And we think that in terms of developing further legislation, it might be more appropriate for this question and the inadequacy of legal provision in the view of Mr. Mikalakis, that should be posed to justice and constitutional development, as they are responsible for framing the appropriate national laws for South Africa. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Mikalakis.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. Thank you, Minister. My apologies for belaboring the topic, but you would appreciate that it is part of my job. Minister, thank you for that response. I just have a few concerns, and I'm not trying to play politics. This is really a sincere concern of mine. Just on a few points. UN instrument is going to take quite a bit of time. In the meantime, we have nothing as a country. And I will explain why I say that just now. The EU instrument is no longer solely a regional one. If 65 countries across the globe have ratified it, and we have signed it, we've just not ratified it. If 65 countries have ratified it, it becomes a global instrument. And whichever countries have signed it, if we have a United Nations instrument, those same countries would also be signing it. Our domestic legislation only allows us jurisdiction within, automatic jurisdiction within the borders of our own country. The moment we're talking about extraterritorial jurisdiction, we need to have some form of an agreement in place with other nations. I did, when we discussed the cyber crimes bill, discuss this with the Department of Justice. And I requested also for your department to be invited to our meeting to have a discussion on this. But my concern is our domestic legislation means nothing if there's not some or other form of an international agreement or a bilateral agreement with various countries in place. Unfortunately, the United Nations Convention on Transnational Organized Crime that you mentioned does not cover cyber terrorism for the moment. So in the meantime, we are left as a country with, as I wrap up, Chairperson, we're left as a country completely exposed to a crime that will take place or that will be committed outside of our borders. And all of the instruments in place and our legislation means nothing if there's not a signatory of such a multilateral agreement or various bilateral agreements that's going to be costly and take time. Will the Minister please commit to looking into this matter and please to take this seriously, because it is a security threat to our country. Thank you very much, Chair.
Honourable Minister.
Yes, I'll convey the sentiments of Honourable Mikalakis to the Minister of Justice, and we will provide him with an indication as to whether there's any rethinking of the perspective that I have put before the Council today. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Minister. Honorable Labus.
Not audible. House Chair, not audible. Please improve.
One must mute, please.
Honorable Labutu, Honorable Dango, Honorable Dango.
What happened now?
I've been covered, Chairperson.
Honorable Dango.
I have been covered, Chairperson.
Honorable Labuschagne, you are the first. Okay, thank you. Honorable Labuschagne.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honourable Minister, I know that we've really asked a lot of questions around this issue, but you said you will refer this to the Minister of Justice, but I'm not clear at this stage whether there are any agreements. Do we have any agreements in place as an alternative to the extradition in the event of a cyber terrorist attack against South Africa from within the jurisdiction of the 65 nations that ratified the convention? And if not, why not? And if so, what agreements do we have, and what are the further relevant details of that? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Oh, Chair, let me repeat. In the case of an international cyber crime, we can use the provisions of the UN Convention against transnational organized crime as an universal instrument to address this crime. We can also invoke domestic laws, because domestic laws can be invoked for international criminal purposes. We have laws such as the Protection of Constitutional Democracy Against Terrorist and Related Activities Act. We have the International Cooperation in Criminal Matters Act. And we have the Extradition Act. We also have bilateral agreements on mutual legal assistance between various countries across the world and South Africa. So I think we do have protections that can be utilized. And as I said, I will convey to the Minister of Justice and my colleagues in Cabinet the passion of some of the members for the European Council, the Council of Europe instrument. It is a regional instrument, whether or not there are 65 countries that have signed on to it. It remains a regional instrument of the Council of Europe. That's where it originated. A larger number of signatories does not change its regional character. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Minister. The last supplementary is from Honorable Miemang. Honorable Miemang.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Minister, for giving clarity in terms of various instruments that we could use to combat cybercrime. Just to confirm, Minister, that in terms of the revised Chapter 7 of the National Development Plan is a guiding tool to our South African policy. And amongst the principles is the appreciation of Ubuntu,